It's time for the talk, and this was the bit I'd hoped Barry would have been able to help us with, but as we said, he has to have priorities elsewhere at the moment. And I'm going to take this one completely, as they say, an inspirational talk is one where you don't have anything written down. So I'm going to rely on inspiration, try to guide me through. Unfortunately, inspiration can always be overridden by my own subconscious, my own thoughts, my own ideas, because I'm not going to attempt to channel or to do trance. That's a very different process, and channeling can be very heavily affected by our subconscious, and even deep trance can show the impact of your own thoughts if they're held very strongly. That's another story, and one which I'm writing about at the moment, the mind of the medium and subconscious, the other part of us, the part of us that impacts on what we do. Spiritualism doesn't have a Bible. We do have an informal gospel people tend to refer to, which are the writings of Dayton Moses, spirit teaching, spirit identity. They're worth a read, but again, read it with discernment. There's some very interesting material in that. But the basis of spiritualism are the 7 principles. It's often said they were given by Emma Harding Britten in a talk at Cleveland Hall, but that isn't right. The principles appeared over a number of years, and I think some of them were actually in other versions of the principles in other places, and Emma gathered them as well as coming up with ideas of her own through her inspiration from spirit. They weren't formalised and finalised until a meeting in Oldham, and the first version of the 7 principles were assembled. They were given in different parts. There was a bit given at Cleveland Hall, a bit given elsewhere, and it's important to understand the real history of spiritualism and the truth behind it. There are 7 principles that, well, I'll start with them. Many people, we don't talk a lot about them at the mission. We don't read them every week. We just leave them there for people to see. But I'll do it this way today. The first is the fatherhood of God. I'll honestly say, yes, they are old-fashioned Victorian principles expressed in a very old-fashioned way. It's very hard actually to change the principles without altering the meaning of them. The fatherhood was a very different role at that time. It wasn't necessarily a role which was particularly caring. It was often, in Victorian times, something forbidding. We don't see the fatherhood of God as being that now. We see him as a God of love. On the other hand, in America, that same principle is called the infinite intelligence. We believe in the infinite intelligence, and one that doesn't necessarily have any particular emotional feelings. It is just there and exists. Current times, when I look around the world, I wonder, do we really have a caring God, or did God just create the universe and we're actually an accidental byproduct of evolution? And we only now touch on God's consciousness because we exist, and because we had the light of spirit within us, we were able to create our own immortality through the continuation of life after death. And it's only that that's drawn attention to us with him. But sometimes when I look at it, there doesn't seem any rhyme or reason to the things that go on, and I can't actually accept a man who created 55 billion planets would have a lot of time to have a grand plan just for us. I think we often, as ever with mankind, when everything moved round the world, we now still think God moves round us rather than us on the edges of God. So it's a complex one that we accept in fact a divinity, a divine presence that exists and interpenetrates every part of our universe. The second principle is the brotherhood of man. It's a very important principle because it fitted in very much to the early days. Brotherhood of man is accepting everybody as equal, regardless of colour, race, education, colour of skin, sex. It just accepts everybody as being part of the spirit world, all equal to each other. No better, no worse. Just different in ourselves because we were born differently and we carry different elements of DNA, bringing a combination of the histories and memories of different parents and different people to us, but all linking back to the very first evolved human being. That we should actually accept that brotherhood and remember it every time we want to think badly about a group of people. Just think it is not them, they are all spirit. They will all go back to the spirit world. We are likely to meet them again in another place, in the rainbow of mankind, in the spirit realms. It's a very important point because we always tend to forget that brotherhood. And spiritualism, when it started, was very heavily involved with the emancipation of slaves and with the movement to get rights of voting for women. Women's rights and anti-slavery was a major part of the group of people who formed spiritualism. 3, and I'm using the oldest words, the ones I've chosen to use at the mission. Communion with spirits as ministering angels. We don't confuse angels and spirit. We don't confuse the role of angels with us. We say we can communicate with spirit and they are the ones who help us, and they act as our ministering angels, maybe our guardian angel. We don't then get confused about the role of the angelic realms and their existence or importance, because they come from other religions. I kind of think maybe if God created the world all that time ago and had nothing else around him, maybe the angels were the first form of life that he created to communicate with. 4, the continuous existence of the human soul. By the communion with spirits of your loved ones, spiritualism proves the continuous existence of the human soul. Every time a medium gives enough proof in a message that they are in contact with your loved one and that you can accept that, then we prove the continuous existence of the human soul. It's why to us in spiritualism, mediumship is so important. And mediumship is only that act of communicating with the loved ones in spirit, with people in the spirit realms. It's not psychic, it's not picking up from your energy, it is. Mediumship is about that contact with spirit and the proof of survival. 4. Now, what was number 4? Number 5, personal responsibility. Yes, when we get to this one, people will often start talking. They'll talk about mankind's free will. We should always remember that mankind's free will is always governed by their personal responsibility to do the right things in accordance with these principles. It's very hard. We live a physical life in a physical world. We have temptations, we have fear, we have many things that govern our actions. At the moment it's hard to fathom why people are gathering in open air markets or still going to the beaches and ignoring the need to keep socially distant apart from the minimum we do. As a result, thoughtlessly, if you look at what's occurring in the rest of the world, there are likely to be more people catch the virus than they should do. And in that, there will be people dying that maybe shouldn't, and there will be people grieving. It's a good example of using your personal responsibility to override free will when things are necessary. I admit, it's not easy. We all have things that go wrong in our life, and things we do, which we may regret retrospectively. We may be very happy we did it. We exercised our free will and went in a totally different direction. It's just one of those things to remember, that whatever you do or fail to do, you have personal responsibility for the results of those actions, the good, the bad, and also the results of inactions. If you fail to do something that may, and you're aware of it, you may decide you're going to turn your back on the situation. You're not going to act, and that causes pain. When I get there, it takes me to number 6, compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good or evil deeds done here. Now, spiritualism isn't about karma. It isn't about coming back in another life. We don't accept the precepts of reincarnation because they're not proven. And we always believe that there is a choice to be made in the spirit realms of what you do. You may choose to stay there and help others as a guide. So we don't see this the same way as others. We don't see a hell. What we see is that when we get back on that side, we have to go through a life review. You'll have a chance to rest, as I'll agree with a wonderful picture by a lady called Ethel La Rossignol about the Spirit House, a place where when you go back you get to rest before you face this. And during that time, when you are doing a life review, you'll receive Spirit's help. But you will experience both the good and the bad impacts of what you did in life. It's a good reason for actually trying to behave better, even though it's not the easiest thing to do, because I have given a private reading where somebody came through and said there may be no hell, but I may as well have been in hell as I went through that review, as I went through that time, before I'm now able to come out and try retrospectively maybe to take a better interest in the loved ones I didn't deal with properly. And then after 6 we come to number 7, a path of eternal progress open to every human soul that wills to tread it by the path of eternal good. I think that's saying that nobody is left behind. Spirit will always leave us an opportunity to progress when we've crossed over to the other side and to find a way to make that progress. And it may be that the progress even takes us somewhere else. One thing I will say about St. Moses, as his guide Imperator said, if one schoolroom didn't work, why would we send you back there? We may choose another place for you to school to be learning as a spirit. So there may be other places, like the many-roomed mansion of God, or it could be that we just stay in the spirit realms and just progress upwards as we help other people, and we helped ourselves by Spirit in that journey. So those are our 7 principles. They're relatively easy to live with. Not very easy to live up to because we are humans. But I think one of the great things about being a spiritualist is we are not expected to be perfect. We don't have to live our life as a monk. We don't have to live our life in isolation. We don't have to pretend we're anything other than a physical being. And the best thing we can do is do the best we can with this physical life. And remember to enjoy it, or try to enjoy it. If things are going wrong, remember that there are people in the spirit world who are there caring about you. And they'll always be around you to try and help and to live and to express that in some way. Open your mind to the love that's always there for you and just enjoy what you can and make what you can of yourself in this life. But always remember, one of Spirit's coin is an act of service to others. So always remember, treat each other as well and as best you can and ignore our differences. And I thank you for that. And I hope you enjoyed the talk.